The flight this morning was to try to get ourselves offshore of Ponte Vedra, particularly Michaeler's Landing. The flight was basically to get as low as we could, a couple of 100 feet off the ocean, a couple of miles offshore, and photograph that area of dunes in Ponte Vedra. Monday the 28th, they ran 15 leagues in the same direction, and Wednesday they proceeded in the same way, and after, with bad weather, until the 2nd of April, running in the northwest, water lessening to 9 fathoms, at 1 degree length of coast, seeking harbor. 30 degrees and 8 minutes. 30 degrees and 8 minutes. Does anybody know where 30 degrees and 8 minutes is? Just south of Michaeler's Landing.
Dan's right. Ponce de León has been derided for his navigation for a long time, but remember, he was a commander of troops. He was a general. He was the Adelantado of Florida, lord of the land. Just like Pedro Menendez was the Adelantado of Florida.
The Applejack, vision of the 16th century Caravel. The Caravels were a ship that was designed by the Portuguese, probably in the 15th, 16th century, and they were the ship of choice of the explorers. We're sitting here looking at a boat that could easily be converted, and I say easily, I'm somewhat of a romantic. Our goal is to convert for a commemorative floating float. The Applejack.
Yeah, it's very important to me because the place I'm coming from Portugal, our roots is about the caravels and all of that, and to me it means a lot.
It's something that's bringing back a little bit of history to this town, and that's something that this town needs a lot of. The Spanish, came here first, and this boat, I believe, was part Spanish at one time, so it's bringing itself back to the history.
So you might be asking yourselves, why am I coming down to see the Applejack? Why do I care? This is going to be an integral part of celebrating.
I can come in Monday, or Tuesday, or Wednesday.
Okay. Anytime you want to come over, just get a hold of me and I'll come over and help you. What Ken Thomas is going to do, he's going to remove the wheelhouse, the engine, the rigging, the prop, the shaft. What we're going to do is prepare the hull and glass it below the water line and start refitting the hull to the Caravel configuration. We've got the commemoration of Ponce de León, we've got the commemoration of the 450th of St. Augustine, commemoration of the incredible history of the boat building in San Sebastian River in St. Augustine. And this was the last wooden boat built in the San Sebastian by Desco. That's the Ringhaver family. Now, why are we glassing the boat? Worms. Worms don't chew on fiberglass. All right, we got a wheel here. This wheel is called a 5-foot wheel. This boat needed a big 5-foot wheel to pull the shrimp net. St. Augustine Marina has been gracious enough and had the imagination enough to say, hey, that ain't a bad idea. You're going to be here for a while, and we're just going to help you any way we can. And I think that is huge. The lines of this hull, particularly above water, are right with the bow line of a 16th century Caravel. last time we talked, we had just removed the wheelhouse from the Applejack, and at that time we hadn't even any idea of where we were going from there. But we knew that we wanted to build the stern castle, which is the classic stern of any Caravel. So we started that first, and it took us just about 6 weeks to get that built out. Most of the wood has been donated, and if you want me to mention who donated, I'd be more than happy to. David Drizzle from the Alligator Farm donated 100% of the decking, and it is gorgeous decking. I think you've seen some of that. And Wernick's gave us all of the lumber at cost. So, and David sprung for a lot of it, just plain paid for it. The next biggie, of course, is the glassing, and you can see behind me where we started glassing the side of the boat, and it's a process that I was totally unfamiliar with. You've seen the stern castle, you've seen the main deck, and you've been down in, we're cleaning up the engine room, preparing for an engine.
Before you can put the caulk over the top of it, you have to fill in it with juke in order to close it up. And when water hits it, it expands, it swells up. But this is going to be mostly dry outside, and it's not going to be in contact with like the hull is. When the hull goes in the water, it's going to swell and stay that way, but this will not. It'll be hot one day, and then the next day it'll be cold, and so it's going to continue to expand and contract.
Welcome to the Applejack!
Hey, Frank!
Yes!
It's not going to put that much lateral pressure.
The stern cabin is about 14 foot by 14 foot by 7 foot high. And it was the captain's cabin. It was his domain. The main mast step is already built. I think you saw it. It's under a piece of plywood, but that's all. It's all ready for the mast to go in. We've got to do the bottom of the step, and we're waiting now because the engine's got to be put in first, and the drive shaft, and then we got to build a steel bridge around the drive shaft to put the main mast on, because they didn't have engines in these Caravels. So that's coming up. Harold Henry from Fish Island Marine donated this oak, and this oak is local live oak, and it was cut out of West St. Johns County, and then it's been sitting up curing for 10 years. Oh, okay. Now we can take a piece of scrap and nail it against this right here. One of the things we got into was there were 11 cracked ribs on the port side, and those 11 cracked ribs needed to be straightened out. So we got in there and we drove 9 16-foot long sister ribs that went right alongside of them and brought those cracked ribs in line. And I was amazed at how well it turned out, because it could have been a disaster. If there had been any rot or anything, that we would have punched a hole right in the side of the siding. It never happened. There is a borderline of the park. So you can see why the park is ecstatic about this whole thing. He landed someplace in that park. He landed someplace in that area. So I thought I did that for you. Yeah. The biggie that's coming down the road, of course, is the masts will be arriving in July. We're getting the masts, foremast, main mast, and mizzen completely custom turned to our specs. They're 18 inches at the base of the main mast. It's 56 feet tall. So that's all stuff that's got to be done right here. His father represented St. Augustine, the state of Florida, in the 400th anniversary. Jimmy has got all of his accoutrements, his costumes, everything from the 16th century. So that will be the reenacting of the actual landing on the beach from this vessel, which will be offshore with our crew in costume. We should be ready to go in the water October, November. We're technically a little ahead of schedule. So don't miss the boat. Come on aboard. This is going to be fun.